Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. We do not normally do this sort of thing on a Sunday, and it's Todd's fault. Just thought I'd have a quick look and see what other videos have been posted today. Halfway through the afternoon, which I don't normally do, and Todd's got a video up on Bc Maikai. Now that's what this is. And it just reminded me that last time I watered this plant's not right. It's not growing like it should. It's not pushing out a decent root system. It's got some new growths on it, but it's not right. So I thought we'd, the classic thing is when a plant doesn't look right, get it out of the pot. Now, although this is a clay pot, the fact that this isn't growing as well as it should be, it's probably not that well attached to the pot, so it may come out quite easily. I could be wrong. It is quite wet because it's recently been watered. Well, recently, yesterday, but I'm hoping this is just going to tease out. And I'm hoping that the fact that it does tease out finds the problem with the plant. It's not happy in the pot. Now, I don't know what I'm going to do with this yet. It's ripe for splitting, that's for sure. But we do have quite a few new growths coming. Look, we've got vast quantities of bark loose in the bottom. The roots are not filling the pot. So part of the pot is the problem. Part of the problem is the pot's too big for a start. There's bits of leca in here. I don't use leca. Look, you can see what's wrong here. These roots are dead. So the plant's not happy. It's not happy in its current environment. I suspect, although I haven't made my mind up yet, this is probably going to get split and go on a mount, or maybe two mounts, or maybe a mount and a much smaller pot. Yeah, this smells quite Fausty. See, the implication is because the pot's too big, it's staying wet too long. You see what I mean? It's a case of these roots are dead, so most of the roots that are down in the media are not working anymore. So the media is just staying wet, it's not drying out. It's got no help from the plant. It's not using the moisture up. And that's a vicious circle, because that will just make the roots rot even more. There's a few signs of some roots growing here, but not a lot. And the chances are even those new ones are going to get lost, because most of this root system's gone. It really has. Been looking at this for a while now, thinking you're not right, but I don't know why. Well, now we do. There's not a lot I can do with this. See, there are some new roots in places. They're up at the top of the plant. Decisions. My initial decision is that I'm just going to get the scissors and chop these roots off right at the base of the plant. There's nothing there to save. And then once I get all these roots off, I'm just going to get hold of the two sides of the plant and pull and see where it splits. I'd like 2 plants. I may end up with 3, in which case, you know, parts can go to somebody else. I don't want 3 plants the same, if you know what I mean. Yep, well, the theory was right. Despite being in large chunky bark, the roots are dying off and not doing well. So, you need to try something. I mean, this piece is just falling off. Now, I know what you're going to say. You could plant that and it would grow, and yes, you're probably right. We're going to end up with pieces as it is. I think the first thing to do is pull and see where I get a split. It's going to split, I'm sure. I like to just pull from the edges and let it part company where it wants to. Right, that's a piece. But what's within the piece? What have we got? A few older bulbs here, they're just coming off. They're coming off very easily as well. We've got some ceramics in the base here. If that was me, has this ever been part of the ceramics project, I wonder? Old rotten bulb there, that can come off. Well, that's not a bad little piece, quite honestly. These are little seedling pseudo bulbs. There's no point in leaving those on there. And this isn't really one piece, this is two. I think we might end up with lots of some little pieces to put, yeah it is, these are not joined. So they've either become separated. I mean, that's a lovely little piece of a plant. It's even got some live roots on it. That will grow on nicely. I'm just taking this chunk of old woody bits off. That's quite a nice little piece. That would grow on. So, right, we have one. We could end up with quite a few little pieces here. Old lifeless pseudo bulb. Two lovely new growths here with some good new roots starting. So that's a piece as it is. I'll just have a quick break. I want to go and get my scissors. I don't have to worry about sterilising these. They were put away sterilised and they haven't been used since. So this is what I'm getting at. This is just a rubbish root system. There is no point in keeping it whatsoever. Just needs to come off. Nothing here, but we do have new roots growing. Ceramis, very weird. These roots have gone. I'm leaving the stumps of the roots so that I've got something to grab hold of. I haven't decided what's happening to this piece yet. You know, whether it's going to be mounted or what. So that's a nice piece. So that's two nice pieces we've got so far. Now what have we got? So there's a piece come off there that, okay, it's got a new growth on, but it's not worth keeping. That's just a broken piece of rubbish. Now we're getting into older parts of the plant of no use. Let's get these roots off. Let's see what I'm doing. If I'm going to pull it apart again, it'll come apart easier without a tangle of roots underneath it. This might look a bit harsh. I'm not cutting off anything that's of any use. This is all dead stuff, which it shouldn't be. It was put in a holy clay pot to grow well. Right, what I'm doing now is looking around. So you've got a lovely strong new growth there. Some old growth hanging out the side there. That, yeah, see, they're just pulling off. That one can come off. You see what I'm doing? I'm thinning this plant from the outside, hopefully leaving a reasonable piece in the middle. It's a funny little pseudo bulb there. It just came off in meander on another dead bit there. What I'm trying to do is have one decent piece left, which I'm hoping is this piece. Right, what have we got then? Strong new growth here, two new growths side by side there, near the edge of the plant. Come off. Some roots growing here. See, that's a flowered pseudo bulb, but it's a strong one and it's attached. We've got another new growth in the middle and another strong new growth there. I'm going to call that a piece. But what I am going to do is take those roots back even more. They're just falling off almost. Right, so that's a piece. Now we have to decide, is our piece going to go back in a pot? And if it is, it's going in a very small pot. I think this was just put in a pot that was too big. I'm not sure that's the only problem, but it's the one I'm going to run with for now. Right. So if I mount that, I can't mount it upright. It won't grow very well like that. It would need to go like that, you know, it would have to, which means it's growing out from the mount. And that way, this piece here I think is off. It's not part of the plant. No, it's not, it's separate. Makes me wonder whether when I planted this it was lots of pieces. But that's another piece that's come off. Old pseudo bulb. See what we're left with. A piece with a new growth. Scissors. Wishful thinking here. I'm thinking, are these firm enough? Are they going to shoot out? They're not. They're gone. That one's not though. That's even got green tips on it, that one. So that's another little piece. So we've got a group of little pieces and one larger piece. Now that we've got that piece like that, that would mount. And that would give me a couple of new growths near the top of the plant, which will push out roots eventually. It's got some roots growing on it and a strong new growth farther down. It doesn't mean to say that's the only new growth it's going to have. It could have more. So we could mount a piece. Could I put it on sideways? I'm trying to find a flat piece. There's quite a flat piece there, but then the new growths would be at the back of the plant. Rather they were either on the ends or on the front. I'd like to get a piece on a mount, I must admit. What's the other alternative is an open basket, of course. Why don't we think about that then? You know, something like this. Be planted quite deep. Yeah, I think that's going to go in there. Exactly that. Don't worry about that looking dirty. It had sphagnum moss in it not that long ago, and that's just the dust off of the sphagnum moss. And if that went in quite deep, I wouldn't have to worry about staking it, or probably not even tying it in. Just chuck some large bark in there, perhaps some large bark with some charcoal. Yeah, that's the sort of new idea, is to add some charcoal in. Now I've got some, but that wasn't working, was it? That wasn't working at all well, for whatever reason. It's a very heavy clay pot. It's not my normal holy clay pot, and it's what I call a wet clay pot. Holds a hell of a lot of water, so soft clay. Could be. That would have a piece with 3 new growths, with the potential to possibly shoot out some more. And this new growth is just starting its roots, so it would push out some roots quite soon as well. These 2 new growths will follow on behind. And then we've got some small pieces. I wonder if they would mount. I mean, small pieces are easy to mount, obviously, because they have no bulk, so they'll go flat on a mount. I suppose we could even arrange these in such a way that they all went on the same mount. That way there's multiple new growths taken off. That would give me 4 new growths and the associated new roots. there again, that would make quite a nice plant in a pot or basket. For the size of the plant I've got here, that one's coming off, that's an old one. You know, there's 2 new growths on there, so that's effectively 5 old leaves and 2 new growths that look like they're going to be bifoliates as well, because this does a bit of both really. And again, we've got 3 growths there with a nice new growth. Roots will start soon. All 3 of those could go in the same pot, but they need some roots, that's for sure. They obviously don't like wet feet, which is what they've had. That's what's taken the roots down, which is why it hasn't been growing well. This has probably happened over a period of time with me being lazy and just not dealing with it. It's been on the list to have a look at for a while, quite a while I think. I think I could get a nice little pot full with those 3 pieces. That would give me 4 new growths on a piece that big. The new growths are all about the same size, so they'll push out roots together. That could go in a small basket, and then put that in a basket and start effectively 2 new plants. I've already got a tiny piece of this on a mount that broke off last time I repotted. I didn't think these roots had gone this far, I must admit. Just getting into the base now, so scissors doesn't get in here. These are just pulling off. Just making sure that anything is loose enough to just pull off, comes off, rather than leave it there. Yeah, most of the rest is relatively firm. It's not alive, but it's firm. Right. Okay, I'm just going to get rid of the rubbish, have another think, have a couple of sips of wine, and then I'll come back with the decisions. Okay, I've decided to put the little pieces in a small basket, all in the same one, and the one bigger piece in a bigger basket. The inherent problem, which should be reasonably obvious, is the bark is going to fall out the holes, and the charcoal's even smaller, which is going to fall out the holes. It will settle. The pieces will engage and lock, and after a couple of waterings they'll stop falling out the holes basically, and eventually they'll all get bound together with the roots, which will help again. Dirty hands now. Marvellous. Still. Right, so let's do the big piece first. This is going in deep because I don't want to have to tie it or mess about with it. I just want to put it in the basket, plonk it in basically, and sit it in there. But we will have enough for some roots to get into, not a lot. God, the dust in this charcoal is ridiculous, but it'll wash off as I water. The trouble is I don't want to handle the plant with black hands. I'd forgotten about the dirty charcoal. It's dirty. Right. So you've got a strong new growth here and 2 smaller ones there. So it needs to go pretty central, doesn't it? But in fact it's going to have to go nearer the back, because the strong new growth is near the top of the plant. The 2 little ones are quite low down, so I'm going to have to tip it slightly. And then that's it. I want that deep. I want that literally that deep. All I'm going to do now is put enough in to just hold it in place. I'm not going to compact it or anything. I'm just going to let the plant do its own thing. As I say, this is probably going to fall out as fast as I can put it in with these large hold baskets. But they do bind up eventually. Although as you're trying to put the bark in, some is coming out of the holes, it stops. After a while it stops because pieces sort of start locking together and sorting themselves out basically. But I need the plant reasonably firm, obviously. I don't want it waggling around to any huge extent. Bearing in mind the basket itself waggles around. It's very, very soft, flimsy plastic. Alright, where are my little new growths? I need to tip the plant now, make sure they're above ground. That's probably about it. That's not too bad actually. I was expecting that to be really wobbly, and it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. So that's it. Now that will get an absolute drench to wash the dust off. I might even run it under the tap. I know that's tap water and I shouldn't be using tap water, but it's not going to be there long because it'll get watered, you know, with the appropriate water. A bit more bark sorted out. More charcoal, and our little small pot this time. We've got 3 pieces to get in here. It's a theory now. If the new growths are in the middle of the pot, then the next set of new growths will be in the middle of the pot. If I put the new growths on the outside of the pot, the next new growths will probably be right on the edge of the pot. So sometimes it actually pays to put your new growths in the middle and not on the outside. So I'm going to try and do that like that. That's clustered my new growths together near the middle. This one will be on the outside, 2 will be in the middle, 1 will be sort of part way and 1 will be on the edge. And just get all 3 pieces in there. See if they'll stay there. So I've got a live root there, I want that tucked in. Spur of the moment repotting. Not always the best of ideas, because sometimes you get halfway through and you think, oh, I wish I'd done that way, or why didn't I spend more time thinking and less time doing? Well, this one has been on the doing list for some considerable time and I got spurred on, and that's just it, that's the excuse. That's why I'm doing this on a Sunday afternoon when I'm normally falling asleep in the chair or something more useful. It's just one gap. It's got one gap down there. Push a load of bark down there, it probably goes straight out the holes. That's not bad. That's not bad. The new growth there is a little bit deep. Can I twist it over a little bit? Lift it slightly? Nah, it'll be okay. This is nice shiny new bark now. It's not going to stay wet long, is it? I lost my, that sort of information in my notes was lost. But I got a feeling this has probably been in this pot 4 years maybe. It's been in this pot a long time. And the pot wasn't right for it. It was too deep, too large, it was staying wet. So it wasn't doing the plant any good at all. So we'll see what happens now. And as I said, I think I'm just going to run these under the tap. Literally get the dust out. And then they can have some proper water tomorrow. This will be bone dry tomorrow if I'm just running it under the tap now. Dust is incredible. And that will help settle the bark down as well, including a tap. Now it's wet. Tapping it will make it stick together. There will still be an odd piece comes out. That's going to carry on happening for a while. So far, running that under the tap, 2 little pieces have come out. That's all. That's not bad, is it? And the other one, run it under the tap. Just get rid of this dust. And also, give the bark a good soak. With water that I don't care if it goes down the sink. This is just my normal tap water. It certainly wouldn't be the water I would use on my plants under normal circumstances, but effectively what I'm doing is rinsing the media. That's all I'm doing. And it seems to be doing it quite well. Now to do this with my normal water, I'd have probably used 2 or 3 litres of water just to clean this bark off. Whereas now when I water this tomorrow, I won't need anywhere near as much because I'm not trying to wash it, I'm just trying to wet it. So I'm not going to put it down on there because it'll get dirty again. Yeah, I mean you can see the level of dust in there. That's awful. But I'm new to charcoal. I didn't know what I was going to expect. I might have even got poor quality charcoal. I don't know. It was classed as horticultural charcoal. But when you buy a bag of charcoal, you expect a bag of charcoal, not 2/3 of a bag of charcoal and 1/3 of a bag of dust. It's a huge amount. Look, I mean the bottom of that bag is dust. There's an awful lot in that bag that's just going to get thrown out. It's also quite small pieces. I'm going to try and find a larger grade. There's something else I need to do. But I had trouble finding any at all. But I need a larger grade of charcoal to carry on using that longer term. I'm not so happy with that. Very dusty. And the pieces aren't that large either. And you end up with stuff like this that's just going to have to be chucked out because it's just too dirty to put back in a bag. Never mind. Anyway, that's those two. Let me just tip this off because that will just go in the bin then. Get that dust off. Now I've got something I can bring these back so that we can have a look. It's not going to get my newspaper soaking wet. So as you can see, they are soaking wet now, absolutely soaking wet, and the bark's firm. Yeah, it's not going to fall out now. It's settled. And then they'll get watered again tomorrow. They'll get another really good soak, and this time they'll get a good soak with RO water. And if there's any residual stuff left from the tap water, it will just get washed away. Now I've still got one label, but I will have to do one new one. But we'll put the, I don't think that was written that long ago because it hasn't faded. So we'll put a label in there anyway, and the other one, I'm not exactly going to forget what it is because I haven't got any Cattleya types in open plastic baskets, except for these two, which are new. So there we go, sort of afternoon. Oh, soon be tea time. Goody goody. Had my snack lunch very early today. It was about 11:45. So obviously my evening meal is pending and needed. So I'll get on with that soon. What is it now? 3:30, 20 to 4. So yeah, tea time soon. And that job's been on hold for a long time. You know what I've said about leaving stuff in the pots too long? That's what's happened with this. I should have looked into this earlier, and maybe I'd have still had some viable roots. But that will explain why it's not been growing as well as it should do. Despite the fact that it bloomed reasonably well, but for a plant that size, it didn't bloom that well last time round. So hopefully we can now get 2 more vigorous plants going and perhaps get some better bloomings down the line. These new growths should bloom when they mature, but hopefully when we trigger some roots and get some new roots going, we might even trigger another flush of new growths. If not, next time round when it's time for the new growths to come, whatever this time of year is, middle of the summer, perhaps it will push out a lot more next time because it's backed up by a decent root system which should grow from these new growths. So we should get some reasonable pots full of roots. That's the theory anyway. Okay, thanks for dropping by. See you next time.